Record, those Commissioner Chalco, Commissioner Santos. Excused is Commissioner Martinez, and online is Commissioner Sanchez. So let's go to Europe, Miguel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 6 issues for decision that we'll be presenting this morning. The first one involves our charge-off of receivables that are deemed uncollectible. I'll ask the CFO to go through the resolution with you.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. Resolution 30-FY24 is a resolution approving the charge-off of certain GWA receivables deemed uncollectible. There are 1,540 accounts that we've identified totaling $1,071,981. And if you look at Exhibit A, which I believe is in Board Books 5, there's a more detailed breakdown of the accounts, some going back all the way to FY17, but the majority of the accounts being written off are in FY 2019 and 2020, the COVID years. So, as you recall, we were not able to disconnect accounts during that period. Happy to answer any questions related to this. We do this annually. The last time we wrote off accounts was back in August last year.
And those were years prior to 2017?
Generally, that we go back 5 years, but there are some stragglers that we're working on that we weren't able to collect on.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we have some water customers who, built and were told they could do certain things, and they're just in a way that, I know one of them personally, and the easement where the water line goes down to his house, his water line is up on the main easement. There's a side easement that goes down, but if you put the map down on a piece of paper, it looks great. But when you go out there and look at it, it's got like a 40-degree angle going down. And so when that breaks, nobody uses that easement, because they can't use it. But when it breaks, it just leaks. They can't afford to fix it, and they want us to relocate the water meter. We can't do that. Anyway, those are the challenges we have, and my hope is that eventually we solve some of these problems and we get these people to put it the right way. But that's one of the that's one of the drawbacks of people when they subdivide property. When the surveyor lays it out on the table, the map looks great. So you go out there and you look at it and you say, "Wow, this is going down." Nobody's going to go there. Anyway, okay. Any questions? No? Okay.
Okay. Moving on, the next issue for decision is Resolution 33 FY 2024, and we are seeking to establish a position specification for water wastewater operations engineer, and this is essentially to allow or to encourage engineers in the operational divisions of GWA. We've kind of already done this and it's worked well, and so now we want to kind of expand this, and I'll let Chris walk you through the resolution.
Okay.
Thank you, Miguel. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. So as GM mentioned, the second issue here for decision is Resolution 33 FY 2024 relative to creation and approval of the water wastewater operations engineer. The objective and importance for establishing this position is to have an engineer that's 100% dedicated to supporting the operations division. The role of the position is to assist the AGMO and the water and wastewater teams in addressing both large-scale and day-to-day operational challenges. The position will provide engineering expertise that is focused exclusively on operations and will fix an existing knowledge gap between the CIP design and construction of our systems and the operation of those systems by the certified operators. By bridging this gap with the engineering expertise, this position will enhance the production, treatment, and distribution of our water system, as well as the collection and treatment of wastewater. It's essential to address several key outcomes that the creation of this position will achieve, the first of which is having to significantly improve our operational efficiency. The second is providing operations with continual access to essential technical expertise. The third is the evaluation and management of our maintenance and upgrades to critical facilities. And the fourth is to provide strategic planning support to the AGMO for resource allocation, project prioritization, and timely execution of our repairs and upgrades. The urgency to create this position is driven by the opportunity to enhance our production and treatment and distribution in water and the collection and treatment of wastewater. It's to encourage the role of engineers as certified operators to improve our retention and recruitment in the operational divisions, and then over the long term, enhance the quality of our GWA operations through a more effective collaboration between the engineers and the operators. The addition of this position will strengthen our ability to maintain reliable systems and proactively manage the infrastructure. And the role is key to support our long-term objectives and of providing safe, efficient, and resilient water and wastewater services to meet both current and future needs. Location of this, so this position will reside within the operations division. There's no cost to create the position. However, the proposed minimum and maximum salary ranges are, the minimum range is $100,603 per year, with the maximum range being $104,687 per year. When will be completed, if the board approves the position, we will file it with the Guam legislature, and then within 30 days, after 30 days, we would be able to recruit for the position itself. And this is a revenue funded position.
Any questions?
How many we have altogether now in terms of PEs or engineers?
Engineers, I think we are in the 50 or 80 range.
For engineers, I think we're
Are
down
these
to
PEs?
10.
Down to 10.
And how many are PEs?
Two at this point.
Not counting you.
3, 4, counting Tom and I.
And our requirement is at some point we want you to be a PE,
Well, this-
or do we encourage them to be?
On the CIP side and current series of positions, that is encouraged, and as you increase your certifications, you move up in rank within the series. This provides an alternate track. We have several engineers who, for one reason or another, either are not interested in pursuing a PE or may not have the U.S. U.S. equivalent of college education to make that track easy for them on a timely basis. You can bypass those requirements, but it's a lengthy process and it requires evaluation of the original degree program and so on and so forth, and a certain number of years of experience before they allow you to sit for the
I
test.
remember this, Miguel, somebody has to mentor them, right? Or they have to be working for.
If you want to sit for your PE exam, you have to have worked under someone with a PE for a certain number of years before you're allowed to take the test. In this instance, what we're doing is creating an alternative track for engineers who may not be interested in getting their PE, but who have the skills and the technical abilities to be licensed operators, certified operators, and using the operator credentials to give them a pathway to proceed professionally within the organization, and at the same time infusing that engineering expertise into the operational divisions. Tom's a perfect example of our strategy behind this, putting the former chief engineer in the AGMO position. I think it has helped operations tremendously. We have another engineer who is focused on the operations side, and the guys in operations, since we put him there, have been very appreciative of the support that he provides and the expertise and guidance that he provides. They think he's great, and so this provides an additional opportunity for us to move in that direction.
And we split our organization into water and wastewater, meaning the structure that was.
So within the engineering division, there's water CIP, wastewater CIP, and then SCADA and electrical, right? And so we had three PEs running those CIP programs. And then we lost Mo. She was running wastewater, so now, actually we have five. Joe Caldwell, I forgot, is also a PE, right? So there's five of us.
Needs a seismic.
And we're working right with UOG to try to encourage our local kids that are really interested in being engineers to.
Yeah, they participated in the job fair at the last conference, which Vanjie helped to organize. And our HR folks were there doing recruitment and job fairs. So we are looking to bring on engineers into these positions, and the hope is you could start out, and if you want to pursue a PE degree, there's one track already available for you. If you're not so interested in that, but are more hands-on and you like the operational side, this is another track where you can advance and achieve some sort of equivalence with a registration, but without achieving a registration, but by obtaining operator certifications.
We still have a challenge though, recruiting people, right?
We do, and this hopefully will
Will help.
help us with recruitment and retention. And you know, frankly, some of the best consulting engineers that we've worked with in the design of our projects, also not from Guam, but you know, stateside consulting engineers, also happen to be certified operators. So when they approach the design, they have a unique perspective, and you know, we want to help kind of foster that in our own folks.
Okay, good, next.
Next is Resolution 34, FY 2024, and this is seeking an endorsement from the CCU for a Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart Planning and Project Design Grant for the Santa Rita Springs facility. So we have prepared a grant application and submitted it, but the chances of getting approval for grant funding to execute the Santa Rita Springs facility rehab are improved if there's an endorsement from governance. So this is simply your approval of an endorsement of our submitting this grant application to the
Your
Bureau of
efforts to
Reclamation.
do this thing.
Right.
Good. Any
It,
questions? No? Okay, go ahead, next one.
okay. Resolution 35 FY 2024 is seeking additional funding authorization for design services for the Dunca Beach sewer line relocation project. So this is in the Jimmy D area of Tamuning, the Bayside Pump Station. The original scope, we already awarded a design contract for the original scope, and essentially it was to provide new sewer lines more on the land side to eliminate the sewer line that ran right along the beach, along with the manholes that serviced it, to the Bayside Pump Station. Those were always compromised whenever we had storms. The lines would get exposed or cracked, and it just created a problem for us. So adding sewer lines on the land side and then connecting customers who are already connected to the beach side line that we're trying to eliminate, getting them off of that line. That was the original objective of the project. Since we awarded the project, some additional requirements have come up, including as part of the consent decree, the assessment of force mains and upgrading of the pump stations. Those additional requirements now can be addressed in this project. In addition, the last typhoon created heavy stormwater flows, and if you recall, in this area we have the Bayside Pump Station, and then that drainage outlet that goes out releases at Dunca Beach, just kind of south of the Jimmy D area. Mm-hmm. That wiped out or eroded some of the embankment there, which is affecting our access road to the Bayside Pump Station. So additional design work is needed to address shoring up the embankment and stabilizing our access road. So these additional scope elements necessitate additional funding and a change order, which will put this project above my procurement authority. So what we are seeking is an additional funding request of $611,000 and a 10% contingency on top of that of $61,000. So the
672.
the total additional amount would be 672, which with the existing contract at 633,000 brings the total contract amount or authorized funding amount to 1.3 million, which would be above my procurement authority.
So you have to go to the PUC on this one?
No, because this
Oh,
is
yes,
grant
sir.
funded.
Oh,
So
this is
all
grant.
of this will be grant funded. We won't need to go to the PUC, but we do have to come to you for authority above my capacity.
Are you going to be moving the Bayside pump station or still leaving it there?
No, it's going to stay where it is, but we will be upgrading it. And the more important thing, I think, is replacing the force main from the pump station all the way out to Governor Carlos.
Does this sewage get pumped up to Northern or Johnson
No,
Canyon?
Agana. This goes to Agana.
Okay. Where's the line that separates what goes to Northern? Somewhere along this area, everything from
Mamahano, so up the upper Tumon area, a portion of it drains into the Mamahano pump station, and that pushes it up over the hill at Airport Road, and then it goes by gravity down to Agana.
Okay.
So it's that area south goes to Agana, and then
Everything-
Harmon Loop area is collected at the Route 16 pump station, and that goes to
Goes to
Northern
Northern.
District.
Okay. And Tumon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tumon also gets,
GIC South
yeah.
goes to.
But there's another pump station in Epau Beach Park, right? Where does that go? Again, that goes up Epau Road, right? Yeah. Okay. A lot of work to do still.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next.
Okay.
Any questions?
So just as a general note, what I just described is an opportunity where we have an existing project, and then in order to attach some of the consent decree required work,
Right.
we use existing contract vehicles where we can. I know the board is not a fan of us change ordering a lot of stuff, but
Sure.
in some cases, it makes
It
a lot
makes
of sense.
Okay. And it's grant funded.
That one is, yes. The next one is Resolution 36, FY 2024, and this is seeking, again, additional funding authorization for the Fujita Sewage Pump Station rehab and redundant force main project. So this project started as a force main specific project to provide redundancy for the Fujita Pump Station. It was initially EPA grant funded, and the original amount of that contract, just for the force main portion of the project, was $930,000. And this would provide a redundant force main that goes up Happy Landing. The existing force main goes up Happy Landing Road along Hamburger Road, and then discharges by gravity at a manhole just outside the Route 16 pump station. So that's a pretty significant distance, and this project would provide a redundant force main for that. That was the original scope of the project. When the consent decree requirements became apparent that, you know, they were going to be required, we requested an additional cost for the pump station rehab. I'm sorry, yes, that's right, the pump station assessment and rehab design, and also some additional force main condition assessment, which is required by the consent decree. Earlier in fiscal year 24, in November of last year, the board approved that change order amount. As we were going through that process of doing the assessment and the design, it became clear that we would, in order to completely effectuate the rehab, we would need a means to bypass the flows coming into the Fujita pump station. The engineering team reviewed everything, all the information that they had after this initial assessment took place, and the recommendation was made that the old Tumon pump station site, which is on the same piece of property but is now, that older, smaller pump station is now defunct, that has the potential to be rehabilitated to provide temporary bypass so that we can, when it comes time for construction, we can take care of everything we need to in the main pump station. We would not have to acquire any additional property, and the facilities are there, but they need to be assessed, and then there would need to be some rehabilitation. Right now, The wet well is accessible. The dry well of that old pump station has been sealed off, so there would need to be some initial work to open it up, assess it, and then design it so that we can potentially use both compartments for additional capacity, and then tie that into the force main so we can bypass the pump station to do the repair work that's necessary there in order to meet the consent decree requirements. So that second change order proposal came in at $435,000. The intent is to kind of do that in a stepwise fashion, do the assessment first, and that would cost about a third of that change order amount. And only if the assessment shows that it's feasible, then would we authorize the rest of that funding amount for the design to tie it in to the overall project. So in addition to that $435,000, we're requesting a 10% contingency, which would increase the previously authorized funding amount of 1.8. It would increase it by an additional 398. So there's some leftover contingency on the resolution that you approved in November of 2023. So with the 435 change order and the 10% contingency, the additional amount that we would need is 398,000, bringing the total funding, authorized funding amount to 2.2 million. So that's what this resolution is seeking. The funding source is grant funding. We think that we can do it all with the existing grant amounts. In the event that we can't, potentially we could use bond funds, but it would be way below the $1 million threshold that would require us to go before the PUC.
Okay.
Any questions?
Mr. Sanchez, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Give it up, sir.
Okay.
And, yeah, I mean, it looks good, straightforward. Glad we're doing Fujita. Good.
Okay.
Good job, Miguel, and team as always.
Good, okay.
Okay.
Next resolution?
The last resolution is 37 FY 2024. Again, this is additional funding for the Hagåtña wastewater treatment plant causeway and structural repair project. So initially, this project was, the scope of work was intended to address the causeway. There are 3 box culverts or bridges that allow communication of the water between either side of that causeway so that the tides don't affect the structural integrity of the causeway. Those were originally built in the 70s. In the major rehab project, I think in the 90s, they were reinforced from the top, meaning to say that the box culverts were in place, but there was additional structural elements, double T's, I think, that were placed across the causeway to reinforce it, and then the whole thing was repaved and reinforced. However, the causeway itself in water work never received any attention, and the continual deterioration has occurred, so we now have spalling of the top deck and some of the sides. That needs to be corrected, so this project was intended to design that repair work and also some of the other structural work that might be needed within the plant proper. As that work progressed, additional items were identified again, and this is the most recent would be for some of the work to repair the clarifiers, process structures, the headworks, and other mechanical equipment, as well as designing for a bypass force main. So when we do the work to rehabilitate the force main, that's being done on a separate project, looking at the options on that project, and I don't know if the board will recall, but directionally drilling was one option across the bay to provide force main redundancy or to repair the existing force main. Those options were looked at and they were extremely expensive. So what was settled on was using a temporary surface mounted bypass across the causeway. So we would put a large pipe across the causeway. So the latest change order will account for the design work necessary to accommodate that, and then some of this other process equipment. That change order number 3 is $116,000, and a 10% contingency is again requested, and that would put the total authorized amount above the $1 million procurement authority of the GM. So we are seeking an additional $116,000 for the change order, and then 105,000 contingency for that. So about 221,000 in additional funding authorization would be required. And again, this one is bond funded, so we would have to potentially go before the PUC on this.
Yeah, I have a question real quick. You know, I know the boat basin is navigable waters for boats coming in and out,
Yes.
but sometimes I see like sailboats or something on the other side. Do any of the boats come over to this area? You know, when I look at your picture on page 132,
Yes, sir.
there's like a deeper blue area. Is that used to or no?
For
For
moorings,
boats?
yeah.
For moorings?
Where the deeper blue part is,
Yeah?
there are buoys out there, and I do see some boats that are moored out there.
Okay.
I don't think there's any,
They don't get in your way though?
no,
Okay.
they do not. You can see those deeper blue areas you're talking about. That
Yeah,
the reason why I guess they're deeper blue is because as the water flows through from the west side to the east side of the bay, it scours as it goes through the culvert. There's a hydraulic jump. It kind of scours the sand below, and that's what causes that deeper area.
because out by where they put in like the man-made barrier on the outside, it's not as deep. But I guess it's just where those two,
The causeways,
the
the
causeway.
bridges, yeah.
the two bridges. Okay.
So are the culverts being rehabilitated? They're gonna remediate this falling, or are they gonna
Yes.
replace it altogether?
I think they're gonna keep what they can, but remove the corroded rebars, put in epoxy-coated rebars, and redo the whole thing. That is the plan. Probably do it one at a time.
And because it's a waterway, does that gotta go through the Army Corps of Engineers approval process?
When it comes time for construction, it will, but I think we've been working closely with the Army Corps because they have maintenance requirements on the revetment for the Port Authority. There's a recent project that we've been coordinating with them on that they've recently received funding for, so they're gonna, the part that you see going from the plant towards the east, that is going to be repaired. And so we have, I think we signed an MOU to make sure that they have access for their contractor to do that. Some similar arrangement will probably be needed for our future work.
Okay, is that it?
That's it for the resolutions.
Okay.
We can go through the management report real briefly. I'll hit the highlights.
Give us the highlights.
Okay, starting with the operations update on water production. For August of 2024, for the month, we averaged 41.1 million gallons a day, 38 MGD from deep wells, 2 from Ugam, 1 from Tumon Maui, and 0.1 MGD from Santa Rita Springs. We had an average of 99 wells active at the end of the month, 9 with grounded motors, 9 out of commission, 1 on standby, and 2, of course, still secured for PFAS. On the Tumon Maui well production, it was pretty steady at 1 MGD. However, we did have 2 periods of disruption towards the end of the month as crews changed out some of the DAC media in our treatment system at the Tumon Maui well. For water distribution,
Miguel, have we found a resolution for the spent GAC? What we're doing with it? Are we shipping it off island, or is
Nope.
it just?
we are not shipping it off island. We still have some of it stockpiled, but we are, as you know, we do also dispose of our biosolids at the Luzon landfill, and the biosolids also contain PFAS, not because of any treatment process, but just what's in consumer products that makes its way into the wastewater. And so we have consulted with the Solid Waste Authority on making sure that we will continue to be able to dispose of the biosolids. And so they already know that they have a PFAS issue even without what we're putting into the landfill just because of it's in so much consumer products. They know that their leachate will eventually have to be treated for PFAS, and so they've assured us that we can continue to dispose of our biosolids there. In some instances, we have mixed in some of the spent GAC media with the biosolids and disposed of it in those up with their concurrence. On the water distribution side, sorry, these graphs are really hard to read on the printed versions. We are maintaining 95.5% operability at our pump stations, so we're doing okay there. On the distribution, tank levels, thankfully for August, have been fairly stable. We had in prior months some issues with some of the storage capacity, but you can see we're now at the south at 40% of storage capacity, and we started the month out in the north at 30%, and that climbed to 35% by the end of the month, so we're making some progress there. The disruptions to some of the production facilities continue to this day. You know, the current month with the storm, we did have some issues, and some of the reservoirs, you know, the levels dropped, so we're continuing to address those. The production team over the last 3 days has done 3 fight to finishes just to get critical wells back up and running. Typically they try to break up the pull out and then the installation over the course of a couple days, because doing it all in 1 day is like an 18-hour affair, so the crews have been working pretty hard, and again they're at it today on so we still have some
Miguel,
issues that we're
on
facing.
your tanks, are we just about done with the court order projects? I
No.
mean, okay.
Well, just about, yes, but we still have until the end of 2025 to get it completed.
Now, this is the tank across from Home Depot and the tank,
So the
go ahead.
Tamuning and Menangan tanks are being done by one contractor. Both of them are proceeding in parallel, so the work continues. Ugam is the last concrete tank,
Right.
and that one got a later start because of
Land acquisition.
yes, that delayed it, but most recently in getting the construction permit, there was a problem at land management with the zoning, because they were giving us an issue with approving the construction permit because it wasn't zoned correctly for the tank, and so we've worked something out with the director to, he had the authority to approve the building permit, but we're going through the process of rezoning the lot to match the plant, because the lot that we acquired sits next to the plant, didn't have the same zoning as the plant itself. So we're resolving that. But those are, on the concrete tanks, those are
it.
Those are it. In the south, we have several steel tanks that are being rehabilitated, and so they, from a certain point, and I think it's Malolo South, between Malolo and Maleso, those tanks are all offline, and so pumped pressure is what is providing the service. So when we have disruptions, a wider area is now affected. We still have the tank at the end, the Pneumatic Mariso one that is up and running, already been rehabilitated, so that's providing
That's up,
storage
that's up on the hill going up to Umatic, right?
between Pneumatic and Agate.
Right,
Yes,
okay.
on the Pneumatic side.
On the Umatic side.
And then on the other side, we have the two Santa Ana.
Okay, okay.
Okay. On wastewater collections, we are still struggling with pump station operability. We're hovering at 83%. We have several pump stations that need pumps replaced, so that work is ongoing. For wastewater collections on the CCTV side, in August we were short of our goal, but we are okay for the year given the progress that we had made in December and January. So we're still tracking that, and of course now the additional pressure on the crew because of the requirements of the consent decree are now in place since August 9th. On wastewater treatment, we disposed of about 1 million pounds of sludge this month at a cost of about $92,000. And you can see the flows for Hagåtña Northern remain in the 4 to 5 range. Very steady for Northern. Agate, 1.64 MGD flow rates. You'll likely see that spike this month. With next month's report, you'll see this, probably see a spike with all the rain that we've been having. And then Umatic at 0.33 and then Iran at 0.1. So 11.1 MGD average for the entire network of treatment plants. On asset management,
Miguel, for agate, were you guys able to resolve some of the issues, caused by all the stormwater?
we were able to respond to them, provide some assistance with the court order unit, but the lines were flowing. I was telling the commissioner before the meeting started, we have an issue. With the treatment plant, we have a large 2 million gallon equalization tank that allows us to capture the excess flows that we get during storm events from either I&I or surface infiltration, and make sure that that does not escape the system or the treatment process, right? We capture it in the EQ tank and then slowly feed it into the process so that it doesn't upset the biological treatment that happens in the oxidation ditches. Where we were having the issues, so we have that type of storage for the treatment plant, but we don't have that type of storage necessarily for some of the pump stations in the collection system. And the Gwa pump station, particularly, there's a constriction at the head of that pump station leading into it. And the solution requires us, in order to alleviate surcharging in the lines, pumping out of a manhole near the headworks directly into the headworks, the old headworks of the plant that used to be there, into the pump station. So it allows us to increase the capacity into the plant, and then there's sufficient capacity, into the pump station. There's sufficient capacity in the pump station to move it to the treatment plant. But that surcharging effect backs up the lines in the collection system, and where we have infiltration coming in, that's what fills up those lines and causes the backflow in low-lying areas. So we did have some issues with customers at their cleanouts or in their homes, and we responded to those as best we could, but with just the amount of water that we were seeing coming into the collection system, it was difficult for us to do anything else. Part of our consent decree work is doing the capacity assessments, rehabilitation to prevent the I&I, and then upgrading lines, upsizing lines where we need to in order to handle the anticipated flows. So that's future work that is part of the consent decree that we are seeking to resolve with the CIP over the next 5 years.
Over the next 5 years?
Yeah. Continuing on with asset management, for our PM, preventive maintenance to CM ratio, we were at 76% PM and 24% corrective maintenance. Of those work orders that were created on the PM side, 91% completion rate. On the corrective maintenance side, 93% completion rate. In terms of leak repairs versus equipment repairs, 51% leak repairs overall, 51% of the total work orders, and 49% of the equipment corrective maintenance work orders were for equipment. And then completion rates on those, 99% of the leak repair work orders were completed, and 93% of the equipment work orders were completed. Brief update on One Guam, not a lot of progress on the licenses and leases and property issues. There were some other requests. We have a request for an easement for our pressure zone realignment project. One of the valve boxes or valve vaults that we constructed encroached slightly into federal property. We're seeking an easement to correct that, and that's been vetted. It's just waiting on approval. And then we also submitted a grant to the grant application to the OLDCC, formerly OEA, which requires a support letter. We requested that from the command and have not received it as of yet. Utility service agreement, those negotiations are continuing but have kind of stalled, and I think there's been a lot more a lot occupying the Navy's time with respect to the water rate issue that we raised, and so we've not had much progress on finalizing the utility service agreement. The only area where we have had some movement is with the evaluation of surface air foam fractionation technology for treating PFAS. And we continue to work with the Navy on bench scale testing. The results were received, and now we're moving on to pilot scale testing for that technology. The Navy likely will be ready to do that in advance of us, but we're looking at ways that we can jointly pursue either the pilot testing so that we can benefit from some of the results of that, and then potentially if there's a permanent system installed, how we might be able to do an connectivity between our systems in those areas and put in perhaps a joint treatment plant. So we're still evaluating that. There are various other issues that have been discussed with the Navy. The power substation across from Micronesia Mall, getting a connection there using the nearby Navy water line, that is in progress. We're also advancing a joint modeling effort to provide a hydraulic model for both the military and GWA systems for better master planning on both sides. And then the OWIA and WARN working group, we have started discussions with the Navy to form that cooperative relationship for assistance in the event of any type of emergency. So that effort is underway as well, as long as continued discussions on improving operator certification for both of our systems. No change to the court order. The summary you see there, we're still at 98% complete. We discussed the status of the tanks just now, so you have an idea of where we are on that. And then for spill information, you can see we had 5 SSOs that we reported, mostly due to issues at our pump stations, and this could be floats or pumping capacity, and one issue related to fog. So the August 12th one is after the August 9th effective date of the partial consent decree. So these now carry the potential for penalties to apply. And I am not looking forward to reporting next month, as I'm sure with all the rains, we probably are going to have additional SSOs. And then just to round out the...
And the high flow, the high stormwater impact is not a qualifying or qualifying event where that would relieve you of those fines?
So I think the EPA in our kickoff meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, indicated that those types of events they would not be considering as an excuse or a reason why an SSO would be acceptable. However, they did not want to engage in hypothetical discussions. In fact, they said, we're not going to discuss any hypotheticals, which indicates to me from a legal perspective that we have provisions in the consent decree to claim force majeure for circumstances outside of our control, and certainly in any reasonable mind that would be one. The amount of rain, the tropical storm, I think those types of flash flood events could, be to most standards viewed as a force majeure event. I think they've staked out their legal position or preference not to, just to try to put us off of claiming that, but that is a decision that we'll discuss with council. So we've asked ops whenever there are events like this to document everything, and if we do claim a force majeure event, to avoid the fines and penalties, we'll have to provide adequate documentation. So all of that will go into our decision making on whether we pursue a force majeure claim on some of this.
Can you just give a heads up on your PFAS one? I was looking at, the Navy's gonna do its own pilot.
Naval Hospital. They have one well that's offline, and the pilot test involves bringing out a containerized treatment system. I'm hoping
working with them on this?
Yeah, I'm hoping to see one. I was hoping to see one in operation at the next conference. So there's that potential. The Navy is also interested, but there is one that they're considering bringing in to stage on Naval Hospital to treat their wells. and we have wells close by, so we're trying to see if we can figure out how to do that interconnection and do a pilot. Pick a location that will provide us the ability to use the pilot system and them to allow the ability to use the pilot systems at different times. Each test takes 45 days, so they would do theirs first, and then we would connect to it. Either that, or potentially after they're done, if we can get our procurement lined up, then we can relocate it and perhaps save some cost, the transshipment cost that would be associated with bringing in a separate pilot scale unit.
Is it a similar treatment solution that we have in place now, or different?
No, different.
So what's the media?
There is no, that's the thing, there is no media. There's no spent media. What they do is they use the properties of PFAS, which make it desirable for what it was originally designed for in terms of the firefighting foam. They inject fine bubbles into a column of water, and then float out the PFAS, and it collects on a foam, and then they skim it, and they do it iteratively to concentrate the foam. So instead of getting small amounts to surface adhering to the surface of a granular media, and then having all the spent media to take care of, this concentrates it in liquid form and collects it, and then all you have to dispose of is a small amount of liquid as opposed to a large amount of solid media. So that's the technology we're evaluating. That's what this SAFF pilot system does. The bench scale testing for both entities was favorable. So that's why we're looking at how expandable it is to be used in deployment within the production.
And not energy intensive, not requiring a lot of power to.
Well, there is a bit more power than the GAC system, because you're having to run the blowers and then pump the water afterwards. So you need a brake tank, and then you'll need to pump it back into the distribution. So it's slightly more energy intensive, but the real benefit is in the media
Not having to
disposal
deal with the
costs.
media.
Yeah. So there's also destructive technologies that this company that developed the technology, they are partnering with various other entities that have destruction technologies, so that you can deploy the destructive technology on site and take care of destroying it and breaking it into elemental form, so that it is no longer a disposal problem. So we're evaluating those options as well.
Okay. Commissioner Sanchez, do you have a question?
I have an earlier question.
Sure, go ahead.
Summaries are good, I'm following all of that. The only question I had was on the Navy, whether we wanted to consider tolling the second rate increase, which was the significantly higher one, paying the earlier one until we could get the Navy to determine what they're going to do, right? I don't know whether Miguel and Tom were considering that. It's just something I wanted to throw out. And just curious how Miguel and Tom were thinking about that.
So we do have a meeting scheduled with the Navy for this afternoon. We anticipate that they will be discussing with us future pricing and a potential credit. So we don't have the details yet, nothing affirmed, and we anticipate that that will be worked out at the meeting this afternoon. So perhaps we will have more to share with you at the Wednesday meeting.
At our CCU meeting.
Okay, great, Miguel. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for at least considering it. Thank you.
Okay. Are
That's
you
it for
done?
operations.
That's it for operations?
Yeah, we can turn it over to Chris.
Chris?
Real quick, on the accounts receivable, due greater than 60 days, we had a slight increase on the residential side, about 36,000, 21 accounts. On the commercial side, we also had another increase. It was about 6,000, and it was a total of 7 accounts. For government of Guam, the receivables are looking better. We do have a large one with Department of Corrections, though. We expect payment today. Department of Education is essentially current for the first time that I can remember. And
Hospital?
hospital, we're having issues at the hospital. We haven't got any confirmation of when they will take care of this. They owe us about $230,000. They have said they will make payment before the end of the fiscal year, but that's the most they're willing to commit to. And then Department of Parks and Recs, they're up about 100,000, past 90. This is primarily due to their admin officer retired, and I believe there was a gap in between the retirement and having somebody take that over. So it's being worked through now. They're working with Department of Administration to get their payment through.
Okay. Just a side question, by the way, you folks and GPA folks both assisted DOE with their problems. So you still have to bill them for those?
Correct.
Okay. Let's make sure we bill them for that work.
And then one other thing on the customer service side, as far as the highlights go, we did some changes to our automated call handling. And so what that does is it's the routing tree, and normally we would pick it up in the call center and then transfer it out. So those changes were made, and it appears, at least initially, that that's resulted in quite a bit of calls being handled automatically. So calls, we normally average about 1,800 calls per week that come into the call center and are handled by one of our reps. Last month that was down to about 1,000. So preliminarily it looks like that's working a lot better.
Okay. I just have one comment though, Chris. I was making a payment at Treasurer of Guam. I have to pay taxes too. But they were not successful in getting the funding to fund their costs for accepting credit card payments. And so now they have a big sign up there. GPA and GWA payments will only be accepted in cash or check only. No credit card allowed. So that's a new wrinkle. Unfortunately, they didn't hear Director Burns's plea that, credit cards help them, checks and check payments, sometimes checks bounce and whatever, so credit cards are the way to go, but they didn't want to fund that. I tell you, credit cards help our customers. Not everybody has cash in the bank all the time, and credit cards help them.
I think that would be useful to present to the PUC on the 24th.
Yeah, because, you've got a lot of people that we're paying at Treasurer of Guam when they pay their property tax and other bills, right? And so now they have to come to our office if they want to use the credit card. No?
It's two devices, right? One for us.
Well, we
one
have
for
our own
GPA.
office.
No, I'm talking about DOA at,
No, I know, but, yeah, but what I mean is, everybody else who goes to one of our offices can make a credit card. I know.
I mean, just adding another device.
I don't,
We'll look into it.
We're looking at that, or maybe a web-based interface that they can use.
okay, well, try, but,
Hey, Mr. Chairman and
Yes.
colleagues, sorry to interrupt, but can you hear me?
yes,
Okay, just a quick, heads up, I guess, for want of better phrase. I got a call from Senator Brown last Friday, I guess Senator Nicholas still wants to pass the bill, to prevent us from disconnecting people on Friday. She
What?
said Miguel testified and said there's no need for the bill. We already do it at GPA and GWA, but he's still pushing it. And according to her, he got on the talk shows and made us somehow look like we're the Grinch, right? That disconnects on Friday. But I know we've always dealt with this administratively. Miguel testified against it, but she thought we should still, I guess, go public or say that it's not necessary because we're already doing it, right? And so I'll just leave it up to Miguel and JD if you guys want to do it. I don't even know if they're back in session, but she did call me about the city should do a bill to prevent us from disconnecting, which we're already doing administratively. And this whole idea that the legislature wants to micromanage on the executive side, including us, and that the bill's unnecessary. So I just throw that out there, leave that up to the GLG if they want to do anything at all, or just
Well,
not do it.
okay.
Maybe that might be the better.
Okay,
Way to go.
and we'll also have to check our bond
Then I'll go
covenants.
ahead and leave. The meeting sounds good.
Okay,
Great job.
thank you.
I'll see you
Okay.
all on Thursday.
On
And we'll stop right-
Wednesday, next week. Oh, Thursday, yeah, you're coming back for GPA, okay. We'll see you then. The only thing I would add is, we have bond covenants, so we can't say, okay, we're not gonna disconnect on this day just as convenient for somebody else. We have to collect. So, you develop a collection policy. We stick with that. If we do. Yeah, well, we disconnect when we disconnect. That's my point. What I'm trying to get at is we have a policy and we have bond covenants, so we're gonna follow our policy and bond covenants. We can't do otherwise.
Just to update what Commissioner Sanchez mentioned, Senator San Nicolas tried to get the bill on the current session, upcoming session, but it didn't get through Committee on Rules. So he still can request for it to be added to the session agenda once session starts. So that will just come down to whether he has enough votes for it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, what else? Tully, you're up. How are we doing? Got money?
I wanted to mention a couple things that aren't in the
report?
the PowerPoint, but it's in the CFO narrative. The GITA did issue an RFP for underwriters on September 4th. As you might recall, we have one underwriter currently, and we're hoping to get back to two. The RFP will be closing on September 24th, and GITA is preparing the schedule of the presentations. They won't know specifically how much time is needed until the proposals come in. Okay. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is that, as was alluded to, next week on the 24th, we are having the rate hearing with the PUC. The stipulation was signed on August 28th. The ALJ has accepted the stipulation. There are a couple of items that the PUC will be deciding on the 24th. One is the convenience fee on credit cards. The PUC consultants has recommended that the cost, which we've projected to be about 1.5 million a year for fees to the credit card companies and the bank, be charged specifically to those to the customers that are using the credit cards. So that's one of the things that we'll be discussing. GWA will be putting together a presentation justifying to keep it as part of the business expenses, and the PUC consultants will be arguing for a convenience fee. The second item that we'll be talking about is the rate stabilization fund. The PUC consultants are arguing that we can continue to put off replenishing the fund, and we're arguing to set one up as it has proved valuable in the more recent past.
To fund the one that we already have set up. We already have the rate
We have
stabilization
the rate
fund set up.
stabilization fund. We
just
just have to refund, we have to
Replace what we depleted.
what we depleted. And it's- Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Simon.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mike. Yeah, I'm okay on the STIP except for the only question I had, I agree with GWA's position on the STIP. The only question I had was on the credit card issue, only because if I understand it correctly, by waiving the fee, that $1.5 million means that non-credit card payers are subsidizing credit card payers, since we're absorbing this. sort of a subsidy cross subsidy from those not using credit cards. They're going to have now having another $1 million expenses. It doesn't really affect the rate per se, but we've always tried to be as fair as we can be in terms of rate parity and rate impact. If you cause an impact, you pay for that impact. So that was my only question on the STIP. Otherwise, I'm all for GWA's position.
Yeah, I would,
Advocate, the differences with Georgetown.
yeah, I would just, yeah, Commissioner
That was my
San,
only question on
yeah,
that one
Commissioner,
issue.
Commissioner Sanchez, I would just point out that GPA is currently doing the same practice, and they're not going to change their practice. They don't have a rate case where anybody's going to question them. So we will have customers who come in to pay their power bill and say, okay, you don't have to pay a convenience fee. Then you're going to say, GWA, you have to pay a convenience fee. That's I thought we already had a policy on this. We set a policy a long time ago. We wanted to encourage customers to pay and not hold off. And when they don't have money, cash in the bank, we wanted them to come in and pay us. And the $1 million is a nominal amount compared to what we're generating in revenue. Now, I don't know, we'll see how that goes, but, so I guess if they insist that we collect this fee, well, we'll turn around and tell GPA to start collecting the fee, right? I mean, if you want to make it equal for everybody, right?
That makes sense to me, Mr. Chair. That
Yeah.
makes sense to me. I guess then
Yeah.
my question is that why were we charging the fee before at GWA?
Because we were-
When we weren't doing it at GPA, we
Be-
must have made a policy call either to Miguel or his predecessor.
No.
No,
We're not-
we
we're
made,
not.
no, we made,
GWA could charge.
no.
We are not currently charging a convenience fee, and we want to keep it that way. Georgetown is arguing
That we should establish a convenience.
establish the convenience fee.
Yeah. So that's the whole
Okay,
point.
and neither GPA is all.
GPA does not charge a convenience fee. And we have the same arrangements with the banks.
We lose you?
Hello, we lost you? Sorry. Okay. Well, I'm gonna leave it up to the two general managers. You have an argument to make, and I would say that current policy of this board is that we set up and said, we're not going to charge a convenience. We're trying to encourage people to make payments.
We have made that argument and briefed it in the stipulation. It's
Okay.
included as an attachment, and the commissioners have it.
Okay.
But we are going to be afforded 5 minutes, I guess, on this topic.
Sure. And the PUC can decide whatever they want to decide. Obviously, that's their role.
Yes.
And then we'll take a look at it.
Okay, so we would, the idea is that we want to be the same as GPA and absorb the fee to make it easier for our customers to pay us.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure,
yeah. That's been the policy.
my understanding is correct.
Yeah, that's the policy that we've established. That's an established policy of the board. Okay?
Very good.
Thank you.
Good to go. Good luck with
Okay.
the argument.
Okay,
I can understand our position now, GWA agrees with.
okay. Tallene, what else do you have to tell us?
Okay, and if you'd like, we can go through the PowerPoint quickly?
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
No, I mean, the bottom line of finance is we're collecting enough money, we're covering
meeting our debt service
our
coverage.
debt service coverage, we're meeting our debt service coverage. Those are the key ones. Because, listen, people, we're embarking, we have, I believe, for the record, legislative approval to borrow up to $500 million?
580.
$580 million. So we don't have to go back to the legislature anymore. We do have to go through the process of, using commercial private credit, all these good things that will help us save money along the way. But we're going to be borrowing money. And the way you borrow money and we get a good rate for our ratepayers is to
have
keep our
healthy-
debt service coverage at a good rate, to do these other things that we're trying to do. Anyway, so Commissioner Santos.
I know we were talking about, Tony and Miguel and Chris, about I guess something similar to GPA and the typhoon insurance, self-funded insurance plan. Are you guys looking at that? Are you still talking about something along those lines?
I think we have talked about it before. I think it's still something that we would want to do, but in light of the rate case and the RSF,
You
we want
did
to get
make
that
it-
established first before we
Yeah.
start talking to them about a self-insurance fund. But
Yeah.
they have recognized the cost of insurance and how it has increased, and so,
I'm gonna tell you guys, I didn't wanna bring it up, but I'm sitting at a GPA meeting and the reinsurance guys are talking about PFAS, and I'm going, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, it's on their radar.
because the federal government has made it a part of the CERCLA regulations, right? So it's considered in certain forms and certain concentrations to be hazardous waste. And of course, as a pass-through entity, we're not creating it, we're not introducing it into our systems, but we have to deal with it. And as a result, there is, under the law, that potential liability as a potentially responsible party, right? And that's what utilities will be viewed as by EPA. At the Territorial Infrastructure and Climate Workshop, one of the discussions on PFAS, one of the sessions on PFAS, I asked that question to the regulators and kind of put them on the spot. What is EPA's position with regard to utilities that don't create this but have to deal with it in terms of potential liability, and would they support carving some federal legislation to carve out utilities from that type of liability? And crickets in the room. That's all you could hear. They did not want to address the issue. Subsequently, they issued a written response saying that the EPA will be reasonable in its assessment of liability with respect to utilities, which doesn't give me any great comfort. But I've been talking to you guys about this potential issue, not only on the water side, but on the wastewater side and with the biosolids for quite some time.
Yeah.
And we have submitted letters in support of federal legislation to, as part of AWWA or WEF advocacy to, try to keep utilities from being tagged as liable for this type of issue. But we know the liability is there, and it doesn't surprise me that the insurance companies are talking about it.
Okay.
And we are in the process of contracting for a risk manager, and hopefully, the risk manager will help us to pull the program together for self-insurance.
Okay. Anything else, Tully? We're good? Okay. Okay.
Second?